In the scorching heat of July, a storm unlike any I'd ever seen tore through the city. Days turned into nights, and the rain refused to stop. "Anne, you have to believe me." John's voice trembled with urgency. "I came back from the end of the world. The rain will never end. We need to sell the villa. Take every cent you have and stockpile supplies before it's too late." And I believed him. I sold everything my parents had left me, even went as far as borrowing money from loan sharks, all for him. But when he showed up with his childhood sweetheart at his side, their smiles dripping with mockery, I finally understood. The so-called storm apocalypse was nothing but a lie. A lie designed to strip me bare before they shoved me off the rooftop, laughing as I fell. When I opened my eyes again, I was back to the moment where John stood before me, eyes red, pleading, convincing me of his tale. My heart was ice. The storm had been fake, but the heatwave apocalypse was real. "And," John whispered again, gripping my shoulders tightly, "half a month from now, endless rain will fall. It will last 2 whole years. The city will drown." His voice cracked. His eyes glistened with false tears. It was this performance that once ensnared me, that made me trust him with everything. 15 years old. That was the night I watched my parents die. Their car crushed beneath heavy rain. Since then, storms had haunted me, and John knew it. He used that fear to crawl into my life, to wrap me in his web of lies. Every time it rained, he was there. Umbrella in hand, voice gentle over the phone, whisper me to sleep on storm-torn nights. After my parents left, he became the only person I thought I could trust. So when he told me he was a traveler from the end of the world, I didn't even hesitate. And when the weather turned strange, when the heat scorched the earth and the sky rumbled with storms, I believed him even more. But this time, things will be different. John's trembling voice still rang in my ears, but this time, I didn't feel fear. I felt rage, cold, sharp, and unstoppable. I looked into his tear-filled eyes, the same eyes that had once made me believe in love, and I almost laughed. What a brilliant actor. Half a month later, "The rain will come, and you must trust me," he whispered urgently. I tilted my head, studying him. "Trust you?" My lips curled into a smile that wasn't a smile. "Of course, John, this time, I'll trust you completely." But deep inside, I was already making plans. Last life, I had been a naive girl, clutching my father's will and my mother's photos, giving everything away in exchange for a lie. This life, I would become the storm. If John wanted me to sell the house, fine, I'd sell it. But not to fund his fake apocalypse, no. I would take every cent and turn it into something he could never touch. If he wanted me to believe his words, fine, I'd play along, pretend to be the helpless little girl once more. And when his guard was down, I'd crush him. The world outside was indeed changing. Record-breaking heat waves, sudden floods, crops withering in the fields. Scientists on the news said it was just extreme weather, but I knew better. My second chance wasn't just for revenge, it was for survival. This time, I would prepare for the real apocalypse. This time, I would not fall. And when John and his beloved childhood sweetheart came smiling at my door again, I would be the one pushing them off the cliff. I sold the house the very next week. John's eyes lit up when I told him the deal was complete. He thought he had won. That greedy smile of his almost made me laugh out loud. "Anne, you did the right thing," he said, reaching for the documents. I pressed the folder against my chest, smiling sweetly. "Of course, John. But the money isn't in my account yet. Don't worry, I'll tell you once it arrives." The truth, the money had already landed yesterday. Not in my personal account, but in a new company account, under my name only. I had invested half into agricultural land on the outskirts of the city, land everyone else thought was worthless. But I remembered the droughts and food shortages that were coming. When people were desperate, grain would be worth more than gold. The other half, I poured into solar panels and backup generators. In my past life, I had watched people fight over a single candle in the dark. This time, I would be the one selling the candles. No, I would sell the light itself. John thought I was still the same clueless little girl. He had no idea that every move I made was building a fortress. "Anne," he said one night, holding my hand with fake tenderness, "when the world falls apart, I'll protect you." I almost choked on my drink. Protect me. In my last life, when I was cornered, crying, and begging for help, he had turned his back without hesitation. This time, I smiled back at him, my voice soft as silk. "Of course, John. I'll be counting on you." But deep inside, I knew, when the end came, it wouldn't be me begging for protection. It would be him, on his knees, begging me for mercy. Anne's days looked ordinary, but every step she took was calculated. By day, she attended meetings with John, nodding like a loyal fiancée. By night, she drove out alone, quietly storing her fortune when no one could touch it. She bought 2 warehouses under a friend's name. One was filled with food, sealed in vacuum packs, rice, canned goods, dried meat, and water filters. The other was lined with shelves of medical supplies, tools, and protective gear. Generators hummed quietly in the corner, their fuel tanks full. Rows of solar panels waited in crates. Ordinary people saw junk. On saw survival. She even bought weapons, crossbows, knives, and hunting rifles, registered in someone else's name. When society collapsed, law and order vanished with it. She refused to become prey a second time. At the same time, she was playing another game, John's betrayal. In her previous life, she had been too naive to see the truth. His late-night meetings and urgent overtime were nothing but excuses. This time, it took only a single attempt at following him, and the truth unfolded. John was working late. He was entangled with his childhood sweetheart, Clara, in the back seat of a hotel suite. Anne didn't storm in, nor did she weep. Instead, she hired a private investigator who provided crystal-clear photos, videos, and call records. Every piece of evidence was neatly archived on an encrypted hard drive. At dinner, John smiled across the table, playing the role of the perfect fiancé. Anne smiled back, her eyes concealing a frozen flame. "Anne, I'll always be honest with you," he said smoothly. She raised her glass and whispered, "I know." One day, when the time was right, she would tear his lies apart and shred his reputation. But until then, she let him play his little game, while she quietly built an empire that not even the end of the world could destroy. 2 days before the apocalypse, Anne vanished. She left behind no trace, disappearing as though she had been erased from John's life. In truth, she had moved into her new refuge, a fortified safe house disguised as an ordinary suburban home. Reinforced windows, blackout curtains, solar generators, a basement stocked with canned food, water, medicine, and even luxuries. like chocolate and wine. When the world ended, it wasn't the endless rain John had once mocked her for predicting. It was heat, blistering, unrelenting heat that melted asphalt, dried rivers overnight, and turned the city into a furnace. Outside, the world burned. Inside, Anne reclined in her cool underground lounge, sipping iced tea from her solar-powered refrigerator. Eyes fixed on her secret CCTV feeds. On the screen, John and Clara lingered in that familiar living room, restless and agitated. They pushed the curtains aside again and again, staring at the scorched earth outside with panic and rage. Where is she? Why hasn't she come back? Clara's voice was sharp, almost hysterical. Damn it, she's hiding somewhere, enjoying herself. John's back, sweat dripping down his face. For days, Anne ignored their messages. But as their food ran out, the calls multiplied relentlessly, desperate ringing through the nights. Finally, one evening, Anne raised her wine glass and lazily answered their video call. On the screen, she looked radiant, red wine shimmering in her glass. Having a hard time, are you? That's a shame. My wine is chilled and it tastes divine. Her voice was equal parts mockery and mercy. John and Clara's expressions darkened. Hunger and fury clouded their eyes. Then John made a fatal mistake. He captured Anne's video, her glass of wine, the shelves behind her glimmering with food and luxuries, and posted it to their community chat. The reaction was instant. Selfish, hoarding supplies. She's keeping everything for herself. Anne chuckled and typed back a single reply. If you want it, come and get it. My door's open. Here's the code. The mob rushed out immediately, but when they arrived at the address she had given, it wasn't Anne's safe house at all. It was John and Clara's current home. The enraged crowd stormed in and stripped the place bare. By the time it was over, John and Clara had nothing left. Desperate, they called Anne again. Anne, please, let us stay with you. We have nothing left. Anne only laughed, sending them the files she had prepared long ago. Photos, videos, call logs, every stolen kiss, every lie, every betrayal laid bare. We didn't mean it. Anne, listen to us. It was a mistake. Just once, we swear. But Anne no longer cared. She closed her laptop, leaving them with one final line. Save your excuses for hell. Hunger finally shattered their sanity. With no power, no communication, and the scorching sun devouring the city, John was forced into the ultimate betrayal. He sold Clara. In a secret deal, he offered her to a local gang leader in exchange for a few bags of food and a barrel of foul water. For a few days, he survived, devouring his spoils like a starving dog. But food always runs out. But soon, hunger clawed at him again. By then, Clara had changed. She was no longer the woman who once wept at his side. She had climbed into the gang leader's shadow, reshaped by blood, sweat, and humiliation into someone cold and venomous. Her revenge was inevitable. One night, John stuffed the last bite of food into his mouth. Heavy footsteps echoed at the door. Clara entered, standing beside the gang leader, her gaze sharp as ice. He's yours now, she said softly, without a trace of hesitation. The gang's enforcers swarmed him. John fought desperately, but iron rods and blades overwhelmed him. Blood drenched the floor, his screams fading until silence swallowed him whole. Clara looked down at his broken body, her face unreadable. The gang stripped the house of every remaining possession, leaving behind only blood and emptiness. Anne never saw John again. Through her CCTV, the familiar living room sank into eternal darkness. She raised her glass, sipping her last mouthful of wine. A cold smile touched her lips. Justice, after all, never required her hand.